Can I call the meeting to order?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. We're going to start.
Hi, good evening. I'm Vice Chair Jacqueline Thomas, and I'll be leading the meeting this evening. First, I'd like to welcome everyone to coming here, and I appreciate your presence. I'd like to take the roll call of our commissioners. I'm present. Mary Norton, present. Ms. Fox,
I'm present.
Shalita Runbeck. Nina Whalen. Here. And Nat White.
Here.
Deborah Harris.
Here.
And Bruce Applin. Okay, absolutely. First, I'd like to start this meeting with the land acknowledgement. The Flagstaff Open Space Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home. Our first action is to approve last session's minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? So,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any nays? All right, thank you. At this time, we would like to take public comment, but this is just public comment that's not related to the current trail plan that's coming forward. We'll do that later. Is there any general public comments? Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to our business items. I understand that we have a presentation. So I would ask that we have the presentation. I think it's being pulled up. After the presentation, there'll be an opportunity for the commissioners to ask clarifying questions. We will then open it up for public comment. And after that public comment, there'll be an opportunity for the commissioners to again meet and hopefully can make a decision. This is our only item for making a decision today on the agenda.
Great. I'd like to invite Mark Loseth from STR up. He's going to do an update where we left off with the plan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Commission. Chair and
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, current Chair. Thank you for having me again today. So the last two meetings that we've had here at the Open Space Commission, we've discussed proposed recommendations that you all could make as a commission to the open space section for this Observatory Mesa Trail Plan. Those recommendations were recorded and tracked and pretty much for the most part included into the current version of the draft plan that was released just a few days ago. And apologies for delayed release of that. But this document in front of us today, simple Word doc, but really it's trying to be as concise as possible as to the discussions that we're having over the last couple of months and the language that is now in the current version of the draft pertaining to those discussions and recommendations that have been in discussion with the commission. And so today, just to again keep it brief, I'd like to allow for as much time for discussion and questions as possible. We'll just kind of walk through this document as far as the recommendations you all were making and what is now in the draft plan. So regarding e-bikes, we have, per the recommendation of the commission, the draft says e-bikes will be limited to use on existing roads and foot trails within the planning area. So this is based on the discussion from last month. Multi-use and multi-directional. So this was based on that conversation about having trails that are intended for single uses, having intended trails that are designed as directional in nature. Language now reads in the draft, the trail system will be multi-use and bi-directional. Each trail will be open to all allowed uses traveling in either direction. So this kind of upholds that conversation that you all had about, these trails are multi-use, these trails are multi-directional. As per your recommendation to remove Trail 3.36, Trail 3.36 is known around town as Hot Pockets. You all recommended that it be removed for habitat reasons and restored back to the condition it was before that trail was installed. That trail has now been taken out of the draft plan and is now slated for restoration. However, two trails, both on open space property. This one, 5.25, is one to the west of the Foots Trail on that south slope, the Foots Tom Springs Trail. And 5.26 is just north of the Foots Mars Hill alignment. Both of these are on open space. Both of these conceptual alignments are between 1/2 mile and 3/4 mile long. Will be designed and constructed to provide intentional experiences for biking while remaining open to all allowed uses. Both trails are near access points and will provide opportunities for bikers with beginner and moderate skill levels not currently available in the GOMA planning area. That's a quote from the current draft of the plan. And relate the, thinking about the opportunities from per public comments from the second round of commenting. All right, so discussion on maintenance. So we had a discussion, the last meeting and the meeting before, about making sure that there was language that incorporates the idea of the importance of trail maintenance and the importance of doing it on a routine basis. So the language now reads in the draft: perform annual trail assessments and maintenance on completed trails to preserve sustainability and prevent larger scale trail damage. Assessments and maintenance should be performed in spring, April or May, or fall, September and October each year. There is a little bit more language in the plan, likely down in one of the appendices, that talks about, when you think about what trail maintenance is, you're assessing the need and the condition of drainage features. You're assessing the stability of the trail tread itself to make sure that it's safe for all users. And you're looking at potential user created damage and how to mitigate that using maintenance per trail assessments that happen. Funding. So talking about funding, this is included in one of the appendices, that the open space section will continue to utilize the city's approved budgetary process to assess needs and request additional funding for maintaining the expanded trail system. Grant funding for implementation and continued maintenance will be applied for as available and as capacity allows. And related to enforcement, the draft now reads, continuing this volunteer program is important. Oh, sorry, lacking some context here. So this is the volunteer stewardship program that the open space section currently runs and manages using volunteers. So continuing this volunteer program is important to successfully implementing the OMNA trail plan, especially as it pertains to monitoring and identifying needs for directing maintenance and enforcement partnership opportunities with the Flagstaff Police Department. So that's in regards to what's in the plan currently. Trying to keep this brief to provide for discussion. So happy to take any questions that you all have. Thank you very much.
That's the whole presentation.
That's the presentation.
Just an update from where we left off last time. So last time we
Okay.
finished reviewing the plan, and these were the items that the commission had specific comments on. So I've asked Mark to provide us an update on those specific updates that where we left off. So that is where we left off. But if you need an additional update, or do you like to look at the plan, we certainly can do that.
I do have a question. A point was made that 2.7 goes through Forest Service land. And therefore, it's part of our plan because of connections and stuff like that, but it's not part of our authority to decide what that trail, that particular portion of the trail should be one way or another. Is that correct?
Which trail are you referring to?
It's 2.7 that goes through section 1.
Oh, 2.7 is an access point.
Oh, that's the road.
Yeah, so that's road,
That's
Forest Road 515A. There is some signage at access point 2.27 now.
I'm wrong, it's section 13 that I'm talking about.
Okay. About the trails on Forest Service land?
Yeah, they're on Forest Service land. So do we have an agreement of how those trails should be? This also includes section 7. I'm just thinking about authority here and trail design. I don't want to bring up a whole nother.
Yeah, I think I can try to address that question. This is a cross-jurisdictional trail plan with partnership mainly between Forest Service and city, and potentially maybe Lowell Observatory at some point in the future.
Yeah.
We have had meetings with all of the main players at the table. So they know that this is coming, but it would require the city of Flagstaff to obtain a special use permit from the Forest Service for implementation. So that would be one of the steps after city council reviews and approves it.
So, okay, so that's part of the steps. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's really great. We do have some Forest Service in attendance tonight, so if we do have direct questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer.
Commissioner
Not to
White,
put them on the spot.
can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
I understand what you're getting at right now. Do you feel that it needs to be more specific in the plan that, multi-use and bi-directional is specific to open space property? Because it's not specific in the plan right now, but it's a good thought if I'm on the same train.
Yeah,
Wondering if you would recommend that it's more clear how that's stated and clarified.
it's a question that's been raised. So, I'm not, I don't have something in mind to say, yeah, we should do this and do that. I think what Robert's saying is, okay, we go the way it is, and then the next level would be talking to the Forest Service.
Cut. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're going to take public comment.
We could do that if there's no other questions or comments on Mark's update.
Hey. So Truman Show.
Good afternoon, commissioners and everyone else. My name is Truman Schultz. I'm the program director for High Country Adaptive Sports. I've had the opportunity to work with Mark a little bit on this project, making more of these trails accessible to adaptive riders and adaptive mountain bikes. And I'm only simply here just to lend my support to this project in general and show that it will not only benefit, able-bodied mountain bike riders and hikers, but folks with disabilities that would also like to enjoy getting on the trail. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do it. Ben Keeler.
Good afternoon, I'm Benjamin Keeler. I live in Coconino Estates and I'm on Observatory Mesa probably 4 or 5 times a week on average. I was just there about an hour ago with my son and dog. I am disappointed with the most recent version of the plan. I feel like the committee has ignored the overwhelming majority that want directional downhill trails, in particular hot pockets that we just talked about, trail 3.36. Huge support in the community for that trail, and it's been maintained for years by the community. I also feel that the decrease in the proposed new trail mileage, I believe it was 25% reduction, is a disservice. And the reality that e-bikes are here, they will continue to expand, and they are a great way to help reduce our carbon dependence. I would ask that you guys continue to discuss this, revisit the plan, listen to the public input. Over 71% in favor of directional mountain bike trails, specifically hot pockets again, 3.36. Plan a future where more people, locals and visitors alike can really enjoy Observatory Mesa. Thank you very much.
Sean Mahoney.
Hi, I'm Sean Mahoney. I live on the public private private interface up on Observatory Mesa, and have been watching this since, was super happy when the city of Flagstaff bought the land, and have been waiting for things to be, trails to be developed, and, have seen the process and have been happy. I'm also a trail steward, so I'm out on the trails, pretty much every day, with my dog and talking to people, mountain bike riding and hiking. I see the desire for people to have a map. So many people ask and say, all right, so I know this trail and I know all these other social trails. And it is a hodgepodge of trails. It has been before the city bought it. It's gotten better because we've gotten rid of the vehicles coming through. But the process needs to get completed, and we need to have trails up there and resources available for all of the citizens of Flagstaff, not just the people that are not in my backyard, that don't want people up there, but for people throughout Flagstaff to say, hey, here's this jewel of green space, and we want to be able to go up and use it. Right now, and since the city of Flag bought that land, there's been no communication to Flagstaff residents that have paid for it about what is up there. I mean, right now, we've got basically the Futz Trail going through, and that's it. And then there's social trails everywhere. So my piece is, I really like the original version. I really dislike the fact that the trails, it's gone from the original plan of mountain bike trails and hiking trails and these trails that weren't on fire roads. So sucking it onto the fire roads and doing away with trails that have been actually built and maintained and are in good shape. I watched online the discussion about hot pockets at the last meeting. It was interesting to see where people said, I've hiked this many times, but now mountain bikers are on it and they've destroyed it. And that was my takeaway of watching that meeting a couple of times. But the key piece is make this a living trail network, make this organization, this committee, where what's there now gets approved. There's movement forward. And it leaves 13 acres of future trails and future things they can go on in the future. And correct me if I'm wrong there of that amount, but I think it's the 13 acres of additional stuff that can go on. Do something now, get a plan out there, leave this as a living document, leave this as a living group that can say, okay, well, there should be a trail over in this area, there should be a trail here, there should be this, and those things can change in the future. It's been too long with no trail development, no trail maintenance, nothing going on up there. We need a plan that people of the city of Flagstaff can utilize. I do also want to say that the hot pockets, I think that going away is a major mistake. It is going to impact a large number, and I think a large percentage of the users up there and future users up there. And it's still, as some people mentioned, that they hiked that on a regular basis. People are still going to hike it. People are still going to utilize it. So, thank you very much.
Ken Lane.
Hello, I'm Ken Lane. I've been living in Flagstaff for 45 years, been riding mountain bikes most of that time. I used to ride a lot up on the Mesa when I lived over that way. I don't so much anymore, but I do occasionally. There's been some great trails up there over the years. But it's always been a confusing mix of social trails, and the trail plan is a great thing and it was looking good. And I, like many others, are disappointed that some things have been taken out last minute. So I wanted to address a couple things, the e-bikes and hot pockets. E-bikes are bikes, and they're the future of bikes. More and more people are using them because it gets more and more people on bikes, and the industry years ago adopted standards for class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes that can be regulated so that they could be treated as bicycles. They're not motorcycles. There are electric motorcycles. They're a totally different animal and they should be regulated. And as far as enforcement, even if you know what you're looking at, you can't usually tell if somebody's on an e-bike or not. So trying to pretend that you can ban them it's not going to work. People are going to continue to use them where they want to use them. So embrace them. They're trail users. They're people getting out in the forest, enjoying our public lands, and that's a good thing. So I think we should be more progressive and embrace e-bikes. And as far as the Hot Pockets Trail, it's one small trail that's very popular among a lot of local residents who live nearby. They can go do a quick lap or two before work in the morning. It's public land. That's what it's for. It's for everybody's enjoyment. And recently, there have been 2 trails added to the Forest Service trail system, Full Sail and Meteorite, that are downhill trails. They're signed as single direction trails. However, the signage and the regulations do not prohibit hiking on them or going uphill on them. They just don't recommend it, which is a safety issue. If people are coming down a trail fast on a bike, you want people to be aware that's the condition. I think all of us who ride bikes on trails, we're well aware that there are people hiking with headphones in and they're completely oblivious to the fact that there are people riding bikes and it's trails for everybody. So I think one little directional trail is a good thing to be added to this system and it should be kept in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joe Hazel.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Hazel, and I'm the trail coordinator for Flagstaff Biking Organization. Thanks, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. Pros. Just real quick on Hot Pockets. The only reason listed for removing it in the document is it's being closed for habitat consideration. So I would suggest going forward, if you're going to do that, please list citations of the relevant documents that show that there are significant, if any, habitat concerns in the area. There's a table where it mentions that the trail's in a gully. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the previous document, the trail was listed as being sustainable.
Yeah,
There's a description in the document. So I might be in a gully, but it doesn't, at least the previous description of it didn't have sustainability concerns. And I'd also argue that on the Red Rock District in Sedona, I could list 10 trails that are in gullies that are periodically active with surface flow. So that shouldn't be a discriminator for removing the trail. So if it's being removed for habitat reasons, let's hear what they are. So I'm going to then want to zoom out. So that's a small scale to a bigger scale and talk about trail density. And is this trail plan actually meeting the community needs or needs or demands of recreationalists up on the mesa? So I did a bit of a little research project and looked at there's a lot of other towns and cities that are going through a similar trail planning effort on trail systems at the urban wildlife interface. So on the edge of their city, of their town or of their city. And I hear, the term trail density being thrown around a lot, like how much is too much? Is it too little? And so I took a look at that and and so of the examples of trail systems that are somewhat similar, you might see trail densities on the average of say 10 miles per square mile to 30 miles per square mile, of 30 miles of trail per square mile. So it's like a trail system that a lot of you might be familiar with is Phil's World in Cortez. It's right on the edge of the town, right on the urban wildlife interface. That trail system is 15 miles of trail per square mile. Another example of a trail system in Tulsa, Oklahoma, on Turkey Mountain. Tulsa is a bit bigger, it's 4 times the size of Flagstaff, but this system is going within city limits right on the banks of the Arkansas River. And it's called the Turkey Mountain Urban Wilderness Area. It's about 750 acres. And in this case, it's the Tulsa River Parks Authority that is coordinating this effort. And similar to Observatory Mesa, it's bisected by a utility corridor. It's been logged several times, and it has a huge network of social trails. So they're a little bit further ahead in the process than we are. But in terms of trail density, let me just finish. They've got that system. They're building 30 miles of trail. Many of them are bike optimized, that are bidirectional and open to all users. As part of the trail design, they have bailouts, places where it's easy for people to pass. And then there are also hiking only trails. My brother lives in Tulsa. He goes up there and walks his dog a lot. But more importantly, there are 9, as part of this system, it's only on 750 acres of land. There are 9 dedicated downhill mountain bike trails. And those are closed to all other users. So I guess I asked the question, is that a lot? And as we talk about trail density and invoke it as if to imply that there's too much or the number of trails is too dense for the land to accommodate, I'm going to go back to Observatory Mesa. I believe that is about, what is it? Observatory Mesa's
2,000 acres?
no, that's only the city purchased property. If you add in the Forest Service land, which is also what we're proposing, I mean, the trail system incorporates both, we're at 3,000 acres. Is that right? 4,000. So the trail plan has gone from 24 miles of proposed new trail, and there's nearly 6 miles of existing trail. That was 6 miles of trail per square mile. Now we've watered it down to 5 miles of trail mile per square mile. And I'd like to remind everybody that Observatory Mesa, that the whole southern part borders arguably the fastest area of growing in Flagstaff. And now we've got 5,000 acres of land that's going up for development. There's just going to be increasing recreational pressure on the Mesa. And I'm asking the question, is this plan actually going to meet those recreational needs? And FBO has also suggested some alternative, some trail alternatives in section 13, which is on Forest Service land. I'd ask that pros consider those in a revision of the trail plan going forward. And otherwise, I think we're missing the mark, and there's a missed opportunity here, and we are failing the community. Thank you.
Anthony Quintal. He's online.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like that, I'm with Flagstaff Biking Organization as well. Joe mentioned the additional trails we had proposed for section 13. I would like it if the commission could be shown those trails, that map that we provided, so they have something to digest here. I would suggest that even if Hot Pockets was retained, the additional trails we were proposing should be seriously considered for addition to the system. As Joe pointed out, there are no trail density issues up here, except one that the trail density is not big enough. There's not enough trails in this project. I'd like to get, so if that map could be shown to the commissioners, that'd be great. That's the map. Great, thank you. I'm gonna read a little bit that I wrote here for comments today. Open space properties such as Observatory Mesa are best suited to robust, recreationally focused approaches for land management. In fact, developing appealing trail experiences in an area like this can help reduce human presence in more remote areas, thereby mitigating actual habitat and ecosystem concerns. We challenge the assertions being made by members of the public, pros, and some of the commission that some of the commission members that there are habitat or ecosystem concerns on Observatory Mesa that would in any scientifically demonstrable way suffer measurable impacts from any of the greater number of proposed trails or uses for this project. Furthermore, we challenge any of the assertions that the guiding documents for this management, for the management of this property in any way support the biased assertions of some. The trails for mountain biking and allowances for class 1 or 2 e-bikes are not within the spirit and letter of those documents. The discussions and comments we have witnessed regarding trail density and use reveal a complete lack of understanding of best practices for trail system management, trail use types, habitat protection, and myriad other relevant concerns. Terms like carrying capacity, wildlife corridor, and passive recreation have been tossed around without any attempt to acknowledge their meanings as accepted by scientists and experts in the field of land and recreation management. Addressing unfounded and irrelevant concerns within this plan is not embracing a quote unquote balanced approach. It is pandering to the uninformed or the highly biased to address their fears about boogeymen. This is bad management, period. The commission and pros should submit a much more robustly recreation-focused plan to the city council to properly address the current and growing demand for a variety of trail experiences in Flagstaff. Thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you. Lucas Cohen.
Hello, everybody. My name's Lucas. I've lived in Flagstaff for 11 years now. I was lucky enough to buy a home 2 years ago in Railroad Springs because one of the biggest decisions was it was affordable and the trail access to all of the Observatory Mesa trails. Also race e-bikes professionally. So the use of e-bikes on Observatory Mesa is something that I am very fond of and is something that is needed along with trails like Hot Pockets. If we lose Hot Pockets, we do need some sort of directional replacement, probably more than one. Along with what FBO said, with all the huge developments going in on that side of town, we are going to need more options for more people living on that side of town. So I essentially agree with everything FBO just said, and I purchased a home because of the good trail access on the Mesa, and we will be losing some of my favorite trails. Thank you.
Nathan Wright.
My name is Nathan Roop, and this is my first time speaking one of these, so I might be a little bit jumbled. First off, I would like to say that currently the vast majority of the mountain biking in the Flagstaff area is heavily concentrated in the Mount Eldon area or the Schultz Creek, Dry Lakes, Fort Valley area. And I don't feel that this plan gives any mountain bikers a compelling reason to go try to ride in other areas of Flagstaff or take some of the concentration or over concentration out of areas like the Dry Lakes area, move into other parts of Flagstaff like this. I know there's currently plans to build out more trails on the east side of Eldon and other parts like that. But again, this plan in particular just doesn't give mountain bikers a good reason to go ride here. I would also like to kind of speak on voice my concerns as a trail runner as well as a mountain biker. I'm very active in the trail running community. I speak to a lot of ultra runners and I'm very involved in that world. And one of the issues that I see with specifically trying to make everything multi-use is that it can have the tendency to make trails that are okay for everybody, but nobody's really excited or happy about. For example, for a lot of runners, I've heard a lot of complaints from people that some of the new trails that have been built are too meandery or not direct enough, not steep enough. So I think that one of the benefits of directional trails, like directional mountain bike trails, is that it might free up some capacity for some of the other trails or multi-use trails to be steeper or provide more of the runners, more of what they're actually looking for as well, in addition to giving the mountain bikers the downhill trails that they're specifically asking for and willing to go help the Forest Service build. So I think that's about it. I mean, overall, I would advocate for keeping hot pockets and probably adding a couple more directional downhill trails. And again, allowing the trail organizers to maybe also build some that are more catered towards runners that want something a little bit steeper as well.
Aaron Els, online.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Els. I'm a 22-year resident of Flagstaff. I live in Coconino Estates, and I use the Observatory Mesa trails, both system trails and social trails, several times a week for primarily running and hiking with our dogs. Most of my mountain biking is concentrated up in Dry Lake Hills area. I'm totally in support of the new trails. I love all of the trail work that has been done by the trail ferries and other groups in town. I think that the trails are really well designed. I think that they really incorporate all of the erosion concerns that we've heard about for several years. As a multi-sport user of the trails, one thing that I would love to see happen is if the Open Space Commission might come out with a statement on bike bells. I find that most of the time, many of the mountain bikers aren't using either single ding bells or a timber bell, and they come up on you really fast. So something could be said from the commission in support of that. I know the FBO has supported bike bells quite a bit in the past, and I see their use increasing, but I would love to see it increased even more. With respect to e-bikes, I actually spoke to City Council several years ago when City Council initially came out on e-bikes, and to Mr. Lane and Mr. Quintile's assertions that it's the future of mountain biking, I agree with them. I think that they're here to stay. I also see a huge impact on the FUTS trails right now. I believe that the city came out and they said, I forget how they're classified, if they're classified with a numerical system or a letter system, but only certain classifications can be used. And I believe that they limit it to top speeds. But I live right on the FUTS trail in Coconino, and I'm seeing more and more e-bikes that the bikers don't even pedal their bikes. They are just electric motorcycles being used on both the FUTS trail as well as I've seen them up on Observatory Mesa. And I think that it's a slippery slope when these are allowed on trail systems, because not only do I see their use on the FUTS trail, I'm now seeing electric motorcycles, the type of electric motorcycles where people wear full face helmets, as well as gasoline powered motocross bikes used on the FUTS trails. So I think that a very strong statement needs to be made about electric bicycle use on these trails and what is and isn't allowed. Lastly, I'm not sure if I've done hot pockets. I'm guessing that I have, because I've ran and run, I think, most of the system trails as well as the social trails up there. I love everything up there. I hate to see trails abandoned. And I think that there's a need for trails that meet certain user needs. So while I can't speak to hot pockets in general, I am looking forward to more trails up there, better trail signage, better and more well-engineered trails. And I've appreciated all of the comments here today, and I look forward to what's going to happen up on the observatory. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Daniel D is online as well.
Hi, yes, you guys able to hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. So my name is Daniel Dickerson. I have lived on the southwest side of Flagstaff for the past 5 years in Boulder Point. I'm a user of Observatory Mesa between 4 and 5 times a week, both for walking my dog, running, and mountain biking. One thing that I don't appreciate about the new proposal is the multi-directional, multi-use nature of every single trail. When I am out walking my dog, I do not want to be concerned about mountain bikers coming around corners, not seeing me, being concerned about her being hit, about myself being hit. And when I'm mountain biking, I don't want to be concerned about that going the other way, about running into someone else. From the public comment period on the initial proposal, looking at the data, 71.4% of people were also in favor of directional specific use trails, both for mountain biking and hiking. And it seems that was not taken into account with the new proposal, making everything multi-use, multi-directional. I would like to see directional specific use trails for both hiking and biking included in this proposal. I'm in support of everything that Flag Bike Org, both Joe and was it Anthony shared today, in terms of specific bike trails and trail density. I love the adaptive access that's included in here, the learning zones, and the additional trailhead access. However, I think that specific use needs to be taken into account. And I think that based on the general public's response, with that over 70% positive response to specific use, I believe that they agree with me. That is all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Popejoy is online as well.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. I wanted to thank the commission for taking into account a lot of the previous comments and making what I believe are some positive changes to the plan. I appreciate the change on e-bikes and addressing some of the trail density and habitat conflict issues, which I think there are plenty of documented habitat concerns on Observatory Mesa, wildlife corridors, presence of goshawk. And so I appreciate the balanced approach that I think this new draft provides. I had a couple just specific comments and then one question at the end related to Nat's point. My comment was regarding, Mark mentioned the assessment and maintenance additions to the new version of the plan. One thing that I would suggest the commission to consider is to also consider the rehabilitation of new unauthorized trails that might be built. So there's language in the plan about addressing current user-created trails that won't be included in the system. But as we've seen from elsewhere all around a town on the national forest, user-created trails will likely continue to be built. So I would recommend including something in the plan about how to address those in the future. And then lastly, was just a clarifying question related to Nat's point about Forest Service trails. Nat mentioned Section 13. There's also a significant stretch from Section 6 up to the Fort Valley trailhead that would be on Forest Service land. And I just wanted to clarify that those would go through the NEPA process in some format. So maybe a question if there's Forest Service folks there, but that was at least my understanding for portions on Forest Service land. So thanks for the time.
Thank you. And we have Mike Wilson.
Thank you. I really wasn't planning on speaking, but listening to some of the conversations, I just have a couple of quick comments. But first off, I would like to say I do support the current plan. And the plan shouldn't. There was some discussion about incorporating the Forest Service parts of Observatory Mesa. And I don't think this plan should be contingent on making any decisions necessarily about the Forest Service land. This plan needs to be put forward, completed, and sent to council and to the public for its for discussion. There's also somebody mentioned about the living document. And I would encourage that going forward, if this plan is accepted as it is, that there is a regular review, every year, 2 years, whatever, and determine whether there is a real need for anything to change. But, I think it just needs to be done as it's proposed right now. And also, the open space is managed for passive recreation. A lot of this discussions does not seem to be passive. So I would encourage everyone on the commission to look at, how open space is to be managed and look at this plan in that vein. And I really don't have a whole lot of comments on trail density, but 30 miles of trails within 1 square mile seems awful dense to me. And in walking and hiking up there, I like the solitary hiking is something that I enjoy, and not, having lots of people on lots of trails and having to compete. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's in the second.
Councilmember Harris, would you like to clarify your question?
Yes, I have some questions regarding some of the terminology that I've heard and the definitions. So whenever that's appropriate.
Okay. Is there something else?
Yeah, I'm happy to read this.
We have some emails that we would like to read now during the public comment period.
We received another public comment from Dr. Jim Gibson, stating he's out of town and unable to attend the meeting. I feel strongly that the trail system proposed for Observatory Mesa should be for everyone in Flagstaff, including e-bikers. Most people who ride e-bikes are either older or have some physical limitations that limit their abilities. There would be no better place for them to ride than on easier trails close to town. Why exclude them? None of the imagined fears regarding e-bikes have been realized. They belong on the same trails that conventional bikes are allowed on. What fears linger regarding e-bikes? People who ride them get all the same positive benefits that people get with any other outdoor activity. It's healthy and they return home tired, euphoric and happy. Again, our local trails should be inclusive and not exclude an important segment of the Flagstaff community.
Thank you. No more comments? So I didn't imagine myself in this position this evening. I really appreciate all the comments. I myself have been reading a lot of the documents over, and I had visited with Robert earlier. I don't even know if it was this week or last week. I guess it was last week about that. But I haven't been able to see the commission in the meantime. And I mean, personally, I'm very swayed by a lot of the suggestions this evening. And what I read in the documents before all the comments were made is that I felt like perhaps the work that we put into here, we can tend to get siloed into our own personal view versus exactly what the community wants. And it's really hard to be somebody who's reflecting the whole community. We've heard from, we've heard from people that live right adjacent to the trails and to Observatory Mesa, and they don't want to see any change. You know, we've heard from the mountain biking community, we've heard from the hiking community, and it's a real challenge to try to represent and value and reflect in this trail plan everyone's input. It's also in the WUI area, which I think is something we really need to keep in mind, the wildland and urban interface. We made those proposals about no mountain bikes because we have no concept of how that's going to be enforced or not enforced or regulated, or who's gonna put signs about class 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I definitely see e-bikes on trails where I know they're not supposed to be. And that and what the Forest Service wants, and the fact that our trail system adjoins with what the Forest Service has and doesn't regulate, that just seemed like such a can of worms for the commission to try to manage. And we don't have law enforcement, and we had to include the part in the document about working with the city of Flagstaff Police Department, because it's not, I mean, unless the mountain bike riders are going to police themselves and not have, we went out to look at the Schultz Creek restoration area. And while we were standing there, some kid on a motorcycle totally went up the trails. While we were standing there, went right by us and up the trails. And I know that's not the group of people that you're asking to have e-bikes using the trails for. But it's a really hard balance. I don't know if the community of e-bikers are going to regulate themselves. I mean, that's what we're asking for if everything's open up to e-bike. I ride an e-bike, but I just ride an e-bike to work and back. It's just an electric road bike. I don't take it on mountain bike trails because I don't have that kind of e-bike. I ride my mountain bike on the mountain bike trails. But there's certainly a lot of e-bikes on the trails, and they go fast and they don't have bells. Whoever brought that up, that was a really good point. But that one is a really difficult situation, and I almost wonder if that isn't something that the city council should be dealing with. I mean, it's just not something that the Open Space Commission has any ability to enforce or regulate or support or not support. I mean, we're talking about an open space that's available to everybody, people who like not seeing wildlife or like seeing wildlife, people who want to use e-bikes. And what we came up with was an attempt to try to be responsive to all those different concerns that we've heard. Personally, I'm okay with the Hot Pockets existence. I think I've been kind of, not super vocal about that, but I'm not totally against it. I think that is a directional trail if it did exist. I've worked in wilderness areas, and we have these places where we just can't stop people camping. We just can't stop people using this particular area. And I don't like the term, but it's somewhat descriptive, and it's called a sacrifice site. And you're just like, I can't stop people camping right there on the lake. It's just never going to work. But by them being there, they're not over here. And so it's an ugly term, because I think it's a beautiful place, and I think people really appreciate what it offers. And I know that you have a lot of concerns about wildlife habitat and just an area that, protected from resource damage. But it's also a wildland urban interface where I don't think we're going to cut it off. We've had that discussion, like, how do you stop this? How do you stop this? And I mean, I could see the Hot Pockets Trail being something that is managed. And I think that's what we're really trying to look for, is how do we put a great trail system out there that's, we put something in the report about having it reviewed regularly to make sure it's taken care of. And I think Hot Pockets is something we should reconsider tonight, about just having that in the system. I'm not against directional trails. I don't think there was a huge volume of directional trails that exists on this current plan. I don't, someone would have to tell me how many miles of directional trails are like
We're proposing the last correction.
Well, on this, what's on here. Oh, yeah,
They're
the
all-
last
they're
iteration.
all multi-
Well, the last iteration.
Do you know? Not cool, yeah.
So Hot Pockets would be the only directional one on here?
We were going to, the last proposal was to post a sign informing folks that users might be
Right.
coming down quickly
Right.
and that it might be a preferred direction, but I don't think Lincoln proposed the trail as a direction.
There would be signs that say the directional trail, but it's not proposed as a directional trail?
We had planned on putting some kind of signage that encourage people to travel a certain direction.
Okay,
May I approach?
yes.
The first version of the plan did not have any trails identified as directional trails.
Okay,
Out of the public comments from the first round,
71%.
that first comment process, we received a lot of feedback regarding the desire for directional trails.
Mhm.
We used the second round of public commenting to ask about the desirability from the community regarding specifically directional trails.
Right,
However, this iteration of the plan, all trails are proposed as multi-directional.
were any of these trails ever proposed as directional?
No,
Were there directional trails proposed?
no, this is all discussion based on public commenting.
So 71% of people said they wanted directional trails, but there are no directional trails in this plan.
Correct.
Okay. No, just asking for clarification.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I think the density thing was a really good point to bring up. And this is a living document. I don't think we've ever had any discussion that this is not something that more trails can't be added to. Because Observatory Mesa plan is not anything we've ever had a discussion about because we can't. So however, Observatory Mesa, I mean, not Observatory, well, the observatory, whatever plan they come up with will definitely change whatever this existing plan is. We know that, but we can't even have that discussion with them because there is no plan. So this trail plan, just to assure everybody, is a very dynamic plan. I mean, right? I don't think we've ever had a discussion that this is hard and fast. I mean, whatever the Forest Service comes up with too, you know, if their NEPA reviews change their suggestions, I don't see why whatever commission is here would be open to reviewing, oh, well, there's a good idea for another trail, let's put that one in there. I mean, we tried to start with a complete plan at the beginning, including the observatory section, but that had to be withdrawn right at the beginning because they can't give us any guidelines of where they're going at this time. Boy, I don't know if I'm discussing everything, but I really appreciate everyone's input, and I know what you mean by you want to have, you know, a good mountain biking place where everybody wants to go, and we have this huge community growth, and this place is going to get impacted. And on the other side, we're the Open Space Commission, and we are trying to manage for a lot of other people's inputs that we've also heard. So to conclude, I would like to suggest that we include Hot Pockets back in the plan. And that we make sure people know this is a dynamic plan that's open for reiteration. And that, I don't know, I mean, I know we suggested keeping e-bikes where on the Foots Trail and the roads. But if the city council wants to tackle that one, maybe we should, you know, I mean, we're making proposals to the city council, so that's just a thought.
Okay, thanks. Let's start with an apology. I really enjoyed reading the Flagstaff Viking Organization, Joe Hazel and his understanding of where we are and what we've done and things like that. And I acknowledge a lot of what they said in there. They've been one of the strongest organizations as far as the trail systems have been metal. up on Mount Eldon and in volunteering and organization. And they are the strongest trail organization, non-governmental organization in the Flagstaff area, and probably the most knowledgeable. And they are focused on mountain biking, and that's good. And so I acknowledge all of that. Where I find the basic discrepancy is that McMillan Mesa is not U.S. Forest Service land, and it doesn't follow the mandate that the Forest Service has is to care and protect the land environmentally, but keep it open for all uses in a sustainable way. Our voters' city land, open space, falls under a different purview. And I say that in my impression is, from being involved with this since its very inception, and even beginning of its inception, and you can say, okay, well, that's because I'm skewed in one direction or another. But I've been involved with it since 1996, actually, when the Greenways thing came out, and this evolved from that in every step. So we're talking 25 years or more, 30 years. So the difference that I'm seeing between the Forest Service and metal and the development of the trails up there and the downhill trails and the one-way trails and all the rest of the things up there is an effort to follow the Forest Service mandate. The city's open space does not follow that. I see McMillan Mesa somewhere between Meadow and Buffalo Park. Buffalo Park does not allow e-bikes on. Buffalo Park is the most used park in our whole system by tons of times, which gets me to the next point. Well, I want to reemphasize this point. We never looked at Observatory Mesa as a mountain biking mecca. It was never mentioned. Biking was mentioned, horse hiking, nature watching, running, they were all been mentioned all the way along. But not specifically, hey, this is for mountain biking emphasis. And that's what I'm hearing right now. I would like to say that I don't think 71% of the population of Flagstaff knows what a one-way bike path is. I bet you most of them would say, that's just one way. They would not know that it means going downhill at a great speed with a great challenge. A lot of athletes in here, a lot of mountain bike athletes. I'm one athlete too, not necessarily mountain bike, but I do it. But I understand the challenges of athletes and want to have those challenges. So when you say 71%, you're not saying 71% of the Flagstaff, you're saying 71% of the folks that happen to go to that one open house and made their opinions made. And you know, and I know, when you go to the city council and it's an environmental thing, you get every environmentalist out there saying on it. And if you said 90% said they wanted this, it would be not correct. That's the other definition. We heard community all the time. Only one person said the biking community. The rest said the community feels this and the community feels that. Well, we're back to the point that you were making and that I'm trying to make about Observatory Mesa. It's for everybody. It's not mountain biking specific. It's for everybody and for everybody's use. Under the easement requirements, which state what are valuable up there. Now I'll get to Hot Pocket. I lived on section 17, well, next to section 17 for 45 years. I've lived in Flagstaff 55 years. I've run that area. I've seen it for every season. I've seen it when it was cattle grazing. I've seen it in hunting seasons, winter seasons, all the rest of the seasons. I know that area like the back of my hand. Thousands of miles on that. Hot Pocket is, in my view, brand new. Maybe 10 years old, I'm not sure. There are several new trails that I know, actually the date, the time that it was put in, that were unauthorized but well-built trails. We're including one of those trails. And I know the folk that did it. And it's a good trail, and it's fine. But Hot Pockets, when that trail was developed, it had no idea what the application said to the state land and state parks. And it's only in a particular area of state land that we fell in. That is open space that belongs to the state within the city limits. And underneath that, there is a whole bunch of rules and regulations that I bet you nobody's looked at, because you got to go to the state rules and regulations to see that. McMillan Mesa falls in that area. But all the way down through the line, we have to keep in mind that it's not federal land. It doesn't have the federal mandate. It is land that is both governed by the city, because we put the $1 million, the taxpayers put the $1 million down, and we got a grant to do it too, to supplement it, and what the state park said belongs there and is allowed there. Hot Pocket does not fit there, and it's new. In my perspective, it's new. And I would guarantee anybody that tried to hike a certain portion of Hot Pocket, they couldn't go down there without holding on to an oak tree, holding on to this, leaning against a rock, or this or that. It's not a hiking trail at all. It's an eroded drainage area. Now, Hot Pocket has probably many definitions, because it's a loop. It's really a loop. And you go through observatory land, you come up, and then you come on to the land across the top there. Yeah, I don't want to point out the details. And then you drop down through Hot Pocket, which is maybe 100 yards or less of what I think is being destroyed. And it's being destroyed not by the community, but by some really agile, athletic mountain bikers. I think that's why, because it affects the few, acknowledging that it's very convenient, also acknowledging that there are plenty as difficult or more difficult ones on Mount Elton. So there's other areas, and that it does not meet the sense of what the purchase, the selling by the state to the city and parks to the city, their meaning. It's just not fit. It's next to a wet area, next to a spring. It's oak. It's all oak, not pine. We've had biologists look at it, unofficially retired biologists look at it and say, this is very valuable, several of them. Maybe we should get an official biologist to come here and say, is this a valuable piece in the sense of what the easement is all about? And I'm all for that, but at this point, I think the plan that we've suggested from our last commission meeting is good the way it is. And I'll go back to several of my points. One, we throw out majority, we throw out community, we have to throw out 71% if it really means something. That needs to be really defined, what we mean by community. Is it the biking community? Is it the hiking community? Is it the whole community? That 71% is not the whole community. I guarantee that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, again, and I'll say it again, is not Forest Service land that we are trying to work with. It's the land that went through almost a 10 or 15 year process. Finally, by a vote of the citizens, came up to be something for all of us and not specifically for mountain biking. And that's why I'm all for all trails should be accessible to everybody, horses, runners, walkers, bikers, whatever. I might be able to say some more later, but I'll be quiet for now. Thank you.
Anybody else? I do, but I was gonna let the bring this one again. I just wanted to start my comments by reading what the vision and the mission and the role of us is. The vision of the Open Spaces Commission is a connected system of open lands that supports passive recreation, protects the natural environment and ecosystem, enhancing Flagstaff's quality of life. Our mission is to advise and advocate in support of the expansion and maintenance of Flagstaff open space system. And the role of our commission is that since we were established in 2003 by the city of Flagstaff, is to advise the city council on the acquisition, management, use, restoration, enhancement, protection, and conservation of open space properties. After receiving the letter, the 4-page letter from Flagstaff Biking Organization, I went back through some of my notes. I've been on the commission a little more than 2 years. And we meet once a month, and we've discussed this 12 times. And in this process, as well as the process of another case in evaluating the right-of-way over Observatory Mesa, we've done a pretty deep dive into the Observatory Mesa property, what it entails, what the documents are, what the conservation easement is, and all of that. We looked at, the public input synthesis report. We've gotten a letter from the Sierra Club. We've dug through the conservation easement text, the bond text, the voters approved, the management plan of legally designated open space properties. And those are the documents that we rely on, and they're not irrelevant, as opposed to what was written in the letter. And we're not uninformed commissioners. As you can see, Nat has a lot of history in this. And so I wanted to say that we have listened to everybody. It was our job to take all of the input in. When I went back through the public input, and I found, and trying to figure out, okay, where did that 71% come from? And in the details, there were a couple of public meetings, stakeholder meetings, the public forum, and there was a little more than maybe like about 150, like 32, 42, 36, 52, whatever that adds all up to. And there were some repeat and participants on names on the list. So it's maybe 71% of that group that was present that said 71% wants direction and trails. And what came of that in our discussion was that when you have directional trails and you need certain trails for certain usage, it expands the trail system. And then the trail system became too abundant and too impactful on the open space, the land itself. It is supposed to be under conservation easement. And that's why we decided to reduce it and make it multi-use and multi-directional and try to please everybody. This is not going to be, nor is it ever was intended to be, an alternative or an addition to Mount Eldon Dry Lakes. The biking community has had their partnership with the Forest Service and done some wonderful work on trails. I don't ride those types of trails. My family members do, my friends do. I follow you all on your social media. I see what you're doing out there. It's great work, but that's not what open space property is supposed to be. It's supposed to be this oasis of a natural environment within the city limits. And that's what we're trying to preserve here. It is, I kind of wanted to address some of the comments. This map was needed, this plan is needed, that's why we're here. That's why the whole origin story of this is how it got started. Yes, we needed to get approved, we needed to go on up the ladder through council, through state lands, through, I forget what the other entities are. Yeah, so that it can be approved, and then at least we have a working document to try to get grant money to even create it. And then have it, yes, be a living document. We talked about that in one of our last meetings. And maybe making a process for the public to suggest changes or additional trails. We're very much in favor of that. Let's see. Let's make sure I kind of hit on some of these already. Like I said, we don't, I said this in another meeting, if we build it, they will come. We don't want it to be overrun with mountain biking. We don't want it to be a travel destination for mountain biking specific. We want everybody to still be able to enjoy it and not be afraid to walk on a trail with their child or with their dog or run with their headphones and have a fast e-bike coming up behind them or in front of them. I don't go on Soldier's Trail anymore because my dog had almost been, run over by a mountain bike. So already you're starting to lose the ability for everybody to enjoy some of the natural environment that we have here when you have that. And I don't think making multi-directional, single directional trails is the answer, because then it's too much. And I think keeping it small, keeping it defined is the better way to at least try to keep a handle on it for now, as we start this process. We do need enforcements. I love it when people use a bell on their bike. I thank them as they, ride by me, because you know what, even though I have the right of way, I'm the one that stepped off the trail. And as they go by and they've rung their bell, I say, thank you for having a bell. I appreciate hearing you come up behind me. But again, the pedestrian is the one that is losing out when there is too much of an emphasis on the mountain biking. So I think that I am in favor of the way we have it. I'm not so much opposed to maybe adding one of the connecting trails in section 13 that FBO suggested, only because it creates a shortcut through that large circle. I'd only be in favor of doing one. I think the others would be redundant. I still am in favor of leaving Hot Pockets off the plan. I think I covered everything that I had written down. Oh, and as far as e-bikes, we had a long discussion about e-bikes, and some of us have come full circle. I myself wanted no e-bikes at first, when I first learned about this. And then the reality of how complicated it is with regard to the foots access and the loop trail and the county property and all of that. So trying to define it as roads and foots trails was a good compromise. And in that public input synthesis, there was 63.8% of the people said no no e-bikes, or only on certain trails such as the foots or commuter routes. And that's what we answered to. That was how we kind of came to that decision. I've seen the signs, that say, do not enter, downhill only, hikers and equestrians not recommended. I would hate to see those kind of signs on observatory. So I think it should be more welcoming to all, and a slower pace, a slower usage, or keep the passive environment and mentality there up on legally designated open space. That's all I have.
I would jump in, if this, nobody else.
Just see if Deborah wants to say
Oh.
anything.
Yes,
Deborah, do you want to say anything or ask questions?
If this is an appropriate time for me to ask some questions.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, first of all, great discussion, and I'm always happy to hear what the commission is talking about. One of the reasons that I opted for this commission was because I didn't know a whole lot about open space, other than open space, just define it very simply. And so I am learning a lot. For this particular issue, my question is about directional trails. And so I think very simply about things. So if I go on a directional trail, how do I get back to my starting point? Is it a loop? And I walk in one direction?
Yeah,
Or do I get off of that trail and get on another to go back?
Yeah, if, in this, 2.36, if that was a directional trail, you'd have to use another trail to connect back.
Okay, all right.
It's recommended, generally they're recommendations for pedestrians. So you wouldn't have to go back on another way. You could go back on that directional trail, but generally directional trails are steep. So you might not want to go back that way.
Their directional trails are what? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Steep.
Steep, okay, all right.
But you would not be prohibited from going back up a directional trail.
Okay. And are they typically narrow? I walk the trails out in Ponderosa Trails and they're not anything like what's out in some of the open space areas. So it's like plenty of room for all of us. But I'm assuming that in the open space trails, there's not that kind of room.
Well, we talked about 36-inch tread for the adaptive bikes and a 24-inch tread on the remaining trails. So
Okay.
at least 2 feet.
And we did make a small revision actually in this plan for 40-inch width for the adaptive mountain biking to make sure that we're meeting standards.
It's not a whole bunch of room, but and then the last question that I have is that, let's see, I asked other trails. And so do you post signs to tell people, you know, you can't do this, you need to have a bell, all of those kinds of things? Are there signs or am I just supposed to know that because I'm being courteous?
Our current system, you're just supposed to know that. But actually, no, I'm just kidding. We will, the proposed plans include signage and I'm sure, you know, working with other community members and groups, that will happen.
Okay, and then how do we enforce that, since I'm assuming, and pro staff can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming that we don't have staff to manage that and to patrol those areas. Am I correct?
In this plan, this most recent addition, it does talk a little bit about our open space route program. That's our volunteer program where we rely on our volunteers to have a presence on site and do small projects and that sort of thing. So we don't have enforcement. We do work with our Flagstaff Police Department for doing enforcement. The combination of working with stewards or doing monitoring and reporting and then working with people.
All right, well, that's another whole discussion. That's very problematic to me right now, but we'll talk about that in another time. So that was really pretty much all the questions that I had. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of discussion because if this is coming to council, I think I'll probably have my opportunity to discuss there. So thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Commissioner White?
Anybody
Anybody
else? There's some happy things going on here, actually. The city council has voted to allow open space to participate in the budgeting of some of the BBB monies that go to pros. So for the first time that I'm aware of, that open space commissions may have the ability to purchase signs, may have the ability to do other things that, as far as maintenance, and that we've never had before in all of our open space areas. This won't come to pass until next year's budget, but that's a big, big factor, because a lot of our discussion has been, well, how do you manage this, or how do you maintain this, or how do you let people know about this and how do you report these things? All that takes some kind of money somewhere, some kind of staff. So that's a possibility next year. Another thing that I've learned a long time in being involved with the community is if you really want participation by the community and you want input from all sectors of the community, you make a decision. Once you make that decision, then you get the input. And I think we're at the point where we've made a decision, it goes to the next step. And that's where a lot of the input will come in, and I think that's where a lot of the more balanced input will come in. I stand up for environmental things. FBO stands up for mountain biking things and environmental things. We all have our different directions, and we all have our different basis for opinions. But it doesn't mean either one is wrong. So I acknowledge the FBO's letter and all the points they made in it. I respectfully disagree with one basic point, is that they're looking at this as just another piece of Forest Service land and we can do what we did at Meadow. And it's not. It's more of a Buffalo Park than it is of a Meadow. And it's an opportunity for us to do it Flagstaff way, not Oklahoma's way or Minnesota's way or anybody else's ways. We're different. Surrounded by national forest. And we have this one little space that's an interface that you make, and we can make that interface just the way our whole community wants it as best as we can judge it. So I'm all for moving this forward to the next step, which is, Robert, the next step will be more hearings, right?
We have one final public comment period or review period for the draft that would move forward to city council if the commission decides to move forward.
And that will be available when and due when?
We have not determined date for that.
The dates haven't been determined for that. What's to come? And it also suggests that, we've all suggested, and you said it first, this was our first go at this. And we're gonna learn as we go along. And a plan is a plan until something says it's not quite right. So it's a live, it will be a live document, but we've got to start somewhere, make a decision, and we'll get major input.
We wanted to confirm.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, maybe Commissioner Fox.
Commissioner Fox, would you like to speak? Commissioner Fox, would you like to speak?
Commissioner Fox, are you able to hear us? Your hand is raised, so we were just curious if you were requesting to speak.
You can put something in the chat, Commissioner,
He's
if you want.
been kicked out of the meeting. Maybe with the storm.
Well, I can hop in here and address a couple of questions. I threw up this slide just kind of to remind you where we've been. And I do think like we've come a long way as was mentioned by several commissioners, we did consider a lot of guiding documents, public input, best practices for land management and recreation. And today, I think we've been reviewing the plan, and I appreciate the commission's patience on this. I know we've had this in front of you a lot and rehashed these topics over and over again. What we started out looking for tonight was potentially for making a decision on the plan. We're asking for potential approval of this plan so we can move forward the plan for the next steps. The next steps being the final public review that we mentioned, and then that would be followed by a city council review to explain where we started and where we've been with the plans and how we got to this point, and share the public input that we got on the plan process. And then there was a question about whether or not the plan was dynamic. The lines we have drawn on the map still need to be completely ground truth, so they are somewhat conceptual. However, if city council approves the plan as a guiding document for Flagstaff open space, we would have to go back in front of city council to amend the plan. So it certainly can be amended, but there is some steps in the process. And of course, we'd want to bring it in front of the commission too if we were changing the plan completely or transitting. So city council would review it. Then we would ask, of course, our Forest Service partners for their review. Arizona State Parks, they hold the conservation easement for the property, so it also require their review and approval. And then the State Historic Preservation Office requires review of any groundbreaking projects that have to do with the conservation easement. So we still have many steps to go at this point, just so you're aware. So all that needs to take place before implementation can occur. I do think the current draft is a result of consideration of a multitude of alternatives. We added a buffer of 500 feet around cultural sites because of cultural concerns. We did a 1/4 mile buffer around springs where we could, based on feedback from Arizona Game and Fish. We did reduce the density of trails based on public input from the first round. We also eliminated parallel alignments. We had a number of trails proposed next to roads because they offer a different type of experience. We got a lot of feedback about the fact we were offering too many trails, so that helped us reduce the density by eliminating some of those trails. And then we identified informal routes that need restoration. So the plan obviously talks about what needs to be restored and what happened as well. And then we also added an additional buffer for neighborhoods when we had a lot of neighborhood feedback. So moving trails away from neighboring property owner boundaries and moving it back. And then for the e-bike allowance, city council made the decision earlier about allowing e-bikes on foot trails and road systems. And so this plan, as it currently stands, does allow for some e-bike use on the mesa, not on the single track trails, but throughout the road system and on the foot system, which in the dark red lines are the road alignments. So there would be allowance of e-bikes on that system as it currently is. So the options that I thought maybe we were considering tonight would be to recommend that the current draft of the Observatory Mesa Trail Plan be shared with public and city council for review as it is ready. And then, of course, city council is a public process in itself, so the public is welcome to come and participate that. And then if city council wants to provide direction for us to rehash that plan, we certainly are able to do that and bring it back to city council, another version, if that is what they want to direct us to do. The other option, I think, is based on the additional public comment that we've received tonight, is if the commission has specific recommendations that they would like to see changed, you could approve the plan with specific conditions. A little bit like we've done with other type of items, approve something on condition. I certainly do want to try to keep this moving. The first slide kind of showed you the public process we've been in, and it has been a lengthy process, and we definitely really want to encourage that and continue to work with the public to make sure that we're including feedback. So, if you want to work together to like make further revisions, we can also bring that back for continued discussion and review in July, if that's something that the commission wants to do. Certainly. Up to you.
Commissioner Fox did put a comment here.
Yeah, can I read Commissioner Fox's comment? It says, my mic is not working. We should approve the current document, knowing it is not perfect, but making it clear that we will review plan in 3 years. Plans always change because reality changes. We should clearly add a provision requiring such a review and the use of bells. Do you want a motion? Yeah, does anybody else want to say anything?
I just have a question. Will there be an official biological assessment prior to implementation of the trails and ongoing throughout the year to see how it's been impacted?
The Forest Service's portion does require a NEPA process. I don't have indication of what level of NEPA process that would require, but that would be required on property where we are proposing trails on Forest Service property.
And not ours. So not hot pocket?
It does not require a NEPA process for city-owned property, although there is the state level review and the State Historic Preservation Office review as well.
So SHPO reviews cultural resources, state parks. I'm not sure if they keep any sort of regular review, but like if any changes if we wanted to modify this though, like within the next 10 years, then we would have to probably go through a similar process we're going through now. The SHPO would probably have to look at it again. And state parks fair too.
And I guess so how do we monitor impacts?
We do have a cultural study for the property. And we propose to build these trails with 500-foot buffer around all cultural sites. And then we monitor the property with volunteers at this point. We do all of our property monitoring, mainly with our staff, our limited staff and volunteers.
So we don't look at things like erosion?
We do, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We do, yeah. We do monitor trails for erosion and invasive species. Yeah.
Under the conservation easement, we need to do an annual report to Arizona State Parks, listing any changes that have happened.
And that's on to beyond just US Forest Service?
Yeah.
And they monitor the property as well.
I have something to say in terms of, I follow it since the first public meeting, I think, in City Hall, and how we progress and we listen to everybody. And also our population is just not only the young people, but also a lot of older people, and especially in the areas like Round Thorpe Park and Railroad Spring, that I understand in terms of e-bike and mountain bike and such. And e-bike in some ways really helpful for people really who couldn't walk that far, it might be. But we really have also to think about other population. We don't have really specification what kind of e-bike that we really have allowed to that, or what kind of mountain bike we really have to open for everybody. And we worked so far, and considering also section 17, that we are really don't know where it will be. This one is just the guiding line, first step of guiding line and such. I really just want to have it the way as it planned, as proposed. So if that's really just the motion, then I will make the motion to have it approved in the law as planned.
Would we need to have an amendment suggested to add in something verbiage about, bells? Or is that something that would be more of a city ordinance kind of a use item? How would that work?
I think the commission can make conditions on approval this evening. So if you want to add that, we can add that language in the plan. And then we can move the plan forward. And I think the other option is for us to make those revisions and bring it back to the commission again.
Yeah, I guess our internet went out here. Yay, okay.
There was a question among us over here. Would we need to put into the verbiage a review timeframe? Does that need to be in this, or at what point would that become part of the protocol?
For the language about bells.
No, bills, like,
Reviewing the
I think
plan.
Bruce Fox said it suggested, reviewing in 3 years or 10 years or whatever it is. Where does that time frame or would that originate from?
We do have some language about monitoring in the plan currently on an annual basis.
On an annual basis.
We also put in a process, we also talked about having a process for the public to provide input on new trails.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that this is that process, like, that we've been working with the public to provide that input and to implement their ideas and recommendations in this plan.
But in the future, it did come up, we talked about
Like
it.
if we wanted an addition or something like that.
How could the public give us input in the future to this trail plan?
I think that this public forum is one of those venues that the public would come here and provide suggestions through the public comment participation.
Okay.
Right? Or, they of course contact staff as well, present those ideas, and then we could consider those ideas and bring it back to the commission. But it would mainly come through this public body for review.
So in the future, let's say it gets implemented, it gets built, it's there, it goes through its annual review process through the commission. At that point, that's when public input would be like, you really need another trail here, or this one's not working, or this one is impactful on something. Is that the process you perceive would happen?
I think the public could come and provide suggestions anytime they wanted during these meetings. So it wouldn't have to be at like the end of the year. We wouldn't have to wait until that annual review. And the same process for our monitoring. I think we would work on monitoring throughout the year with our steward program. And then, if we had an erosion issue, we would try to address that like during the year. As we have capacity. Is that what the question was?
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but let me ask you this. So this process for public input basically ongoing, right? This is like every meeting that they could bring it up, the suggestion or the comment about whatever happened in there. But we don't have really as commission to review the whole plan in certain time. Is that correct?
The commission could request like the review of the plan on a future agenda, so we could add it to an agenda item. So if like somebody came and made a comment in June and the commission was really interested in like pursuing that item, they could request that the agenda item be on the next agenda. Or, as soon as we were able to like get staff coordinated for supporting that agenda item. If you're talking about like, if the plan went forward to city council and they approved the plan to be implemented, let's just pretend like as is, and then there was additional thought from the public about like changing that plan, we would work through the commission to amend that plan. And then it would have to go back to city council for our review and approval of the amended version of that.
And there is no time limit. It's like, well, since we just give it, for example, give it to the city council, basically just our plan right now. There is some kind of comment come really crucial. And we can just go back to the council in how many months?
Yeah, so if the city council comes back and says like, you guys really need to allow e-bikes trails, and we wanted to go back to the commission for additional consideration, then it comes back to us again, and we're working on revising it again. So yeah, that might be an option, that city council has conditions of their own that they would like to see, and they will make those recommendations back to staff. And then we will either work with the commissioner or go back in front of city council for a future meeting.
So, way I understand it, there's a motion on the floor to move this forward.
Well, it's a suggested motion. I didn't actually.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought.
I did
Oh,
do the
okay.
motion
Okay.
I
to
thought,
really just move.
No,
forward
yeah,
with
it should
the
be
chart,
Nobody's made a motion.
to move that one. I thought I did, to move as planned. And that's why.
So that was
you have
actual, okay.
additional.
I didn't know if you were suggesting it or
Yeah.
that was an actual motion, sorry.
Yeah,
so is that right? The motion has been made then.
Motion has been made to move the plan forward as is.
as it is. And that's why with the conditional you.
So- I guess there would be a second and then a discussion. But maybe I just ask this question. To clarify, I thought the next step after this is another big public hearing.
The last public review period was opportunity for the public to see the finalized draft before it went to city council.
Right.
If we have any issues that the public bring to our attention that is like a glaring issue, like we're in violation of something,
Yeah.
then we could revise the plan. But the plan was to present that as like, this is the final plan that is going to the public forum.
And then that would give the public the information they needed to go before the city council when they decided that. So is that clear?
So we hadn't planned on like taking a lot of public input and then revising the plan completely like we did between
Yeah.
the first and the second public comment period.
But I'm speaking for myself, I'm comfortable with what you just said, that we push the plan forward, there's a public review, that gives the public lots of chance to look at it, discuss it. Then it goes to the city council where they can provide, because we're sending this to the city council. We're not just sending it to the city council and then they're gonna vote on it. We're sending out to the public to get all the information there is and to get all their arguments, pros and cons for it. And the city council will have it on their desk to hear all those things and make a decision. And if that's the process, then I'm willing to second the motion.
That is the process. And of course, it is nice if we can wrap up as many like topics before it goes to city council, right? That makes their job easier as well.
Can I?
But
Yeah, I've got one. So if I feel like, I feel like I've read a lot of those documents and I'm not settled on the Hot Pockets issue. I'm settled on the e-bike thing. I think we have a good plan. We've had a lot of input. Is there a way to just put a note on there that I really want city council to know that we've put a lot of work into this. We've listened to a lot of comments, that however, there remains a couple of sticking points. And one of them is Hot Pockets and the other one is e-bikes, but I think we've decided on e-bikes. I mean, that's our suggestion. But I personally, I'm just trying to be responsive to what we've heard a lot of.
I think, yeah, your question is about like submitting a recommendation to the city council. I think that's definitely within the purview of this commission, providing a recommendation to the council on this particular plan. So we can work on that on one of our next agenda items as far as like drafting that recommendation for city council and including like that.
A biological assessment or a biologist review it or like these other things we've talked about. I just don't feel settled about it. And I think that I could agree to a whole plan, except I want this, I'm not just gonna pretend like we haven't had a lot of input because we have. And we do need to be responsive to the community. And Mary, I really like the way you talked about a lot of the points. I think you made some really great points. and you also had like 64% of the feedback we got was this, but then, 71% of the feedback we got was that. So we can't be like cherry picking which ones we want to be listening to and which ones we don't. So I just am trying to be responsive.
I think the percentages, what am I talking?
I know, let's not go over that. We've had so many talks about this, but yeah, I just would like that to be a part of our recommendation. And yes.
Are you suggesting that we do an assessment?
Well, I think what we would do is make them, I can't really kind of tell. You said you'd be willing to make a motion, but that we vote on moving this exact plan forward with an addendum to it that says in the future, we're going to draft a review of hot pockets.
How about the addendum would be that we would have a professionals determine the ecological value of hot pocket.
Well, how about, that's something we need to discuss, like.
I mean, we
don't have time to do that.
I did second the motion, but I would be open to an amendment that said something like
That
that.
reviews hot pockets.
It's so many things that for me really unknown with the section 17 really site on the air. So
on the 17th, yeah.
Yeah, so if even I move the motion in terms of approve these, we don't know about section 17, what actually will open it up and what actually that, where we will change that. But for now, for me, it really just, we have to see it, what actually that our guide is, and we will see what happened and listen to the public after that. And when section 17 open it up, and we could discuss it again. That's why I asked about the timeline earlier.
Yeah, just one clarifying point. So there are some direction for section 17, but it's in the long-term planning. So it obviously required full.
Yeah. So the way I interpret it, we've had a motion by Commissioner Walton to move the current document forward. We've had a second by Nat White. I made a request to add an addendum to review hot pockets. We'll discuss how that's going to look in the future because we're not going to do that right now. Would we be moving forward to making a vote on that document if you're all ready to vote on it?
I guess I'm a little confused on it, but if we're required to review hot pockets, where is that review going to happen? Is it going to happen at the city council level? Or is this just the way of saying this is our red flag, Or does that become like, I can only use for an example, like P&Z, not every case has to be unanimous. Like maybe you would feel strongly enough to vote no on recommending this forward, and your no vote is the reason because you were unsure, if you were not comfortable with removing hot pockets. And that's kind of how we handle, like in a vote situation. Just throwing that out there too.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It doesn't have to be unanimous,
No, it doesn't.
but just like the Supreme Court, you can have a dissenting opinion stuck to the vote.
Right.
I think, if you wanted to approve this plan and move forward to the next steps this evening, we could put the language in there about hot pockets needing an assessment at some point in the future. And then when the Open Space Commission makes a formal recommendation to City Council, they can list out what their concerns were, such as hot pockets and whether it is impactful to that particular ecological zone, to make them aware of that.
I'm the one that seems to be raising the hot pocket thing the most. And I would say if we have, say, two professional ecologists or whatever it takes to look at that, maybe it's an ecologist and a biologist, and I don't know if they're different or not, but to look at that and say, yes, this is a valuable asset that's being disturbed, or no, if it's managed properly, it's okay. I'll go with that. That's me compromising on the other fact that if you say one downhill straight is good, how you're gonna say the next one isn't, or the next one isn't, and so on. So there's a can of worms here that's in the background, but that's not my real concern. My real concern is for professional to look at that and say, it's not a good idea. It's next to a spring. It's oak covered, not pine covered. So I think what I'm hearing is that it could be a vote straight out without voting, with you voting no, and you giving your reason. That would be in the minutes for the council to look at. But I think it's my intent that I think FBO has brought up an important thing. We're not professionals in biology and ecology. So we should bring somebody in on that particular aspect. City might have to pay for it, but I think it's something that I feel would be being true to the intent. And again, that's my feeling. I don't come from a biking position on that.
I think the last thought I have on this, and that is the commission has hesitancy about moving forward. They also can go back that we consider that and that we come back and try to figure that out in the coming months. So I think that is an option as well.
I'm not interested in withdrawing my second. And I don't know whether you are.
That's true. Well, we could review and such, but I think to start with, we have to plan. We don't know about, section 17 and considering the population also. And that's why my motion in the first place, just to move with this plan and see in the coming months what actually that we could discuss it again if that's really pressing issues come up.
Sure, I mean, I could dissent and just say this is what I would like to see for pockets is a more professional review or a more professional review of highlighting, addressing the concerns of the commission versus being the professional making the decision.
So one clarifying point, and that is, do we need language in the plan on that item, or is that going to go in the Open Space Commission's recommendation to City Council?
The recommendation, just go as it moves forward, not part of the plan.
So, Jackie, what you're saying is we vote yes on it as far as our recommendation of the city council, but we like the city council to have professional.
No, I would dissent. I would say no. I don't support it, but it would have a majority to be supported.
Yes.
And I would just address that no when we present it to the city council and decline saying no.
Okay. Fair enough.
And
I hate to not all be together because we all do like to do things together, but
and it'll probably coincide with public input as it moves on forward anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I would rather see it move along.
Yes.
And.
Make a decision and then we'll get the input.
Exactly.
Right.
And her no vote serves as a pinpoint for that input.
Sure. I think that's fair. I think that's balanced. I think that's what a commission should do.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Harris?
No.
Fox?
Oh, do I get to vote? I didn't know I got to vote.
Say Commissioner Fox.
He said yes.
Yes.
Okay. He said yes.
Okay, any sense?
So, like,
So we will move this current draft onto city council.
To the public.
And well, to the public first, and then on to city council. So I don't know if anybody wants to stay, you might want to leave. We have two more things to talk about, which is the John Wesley Powell project update. Information, but tonight.
I think,
We need to wrap it
at a
up.
time, we are gonna need to push those two.
Yeah.
First, we did the part.
Okay, so due to the time, we will be moving the John Wesley Powell project update and the land availability and sustainability study and code analysis project to our next meeting, which is scheduled for
July 22nd.
July 22nd.
July 22nd.
July 22nd. So I'm going to just go down to.
See,
Deborah, do you have any council representative reports today?
No, I don't have anything today.
Mary?
the only thing I was gonna say is there is now an opening on planning and zoning commission, if anybody's interested or knows anybody that's interested. One of our commissioners is now in the city, so he moved off the commission. So there is an opening. Like to submit a statement of interest.
Open space management report, Robert?
The only thing I really had to share was what Nat mentioned the other day, that city council, like, updated the ordinance for the BBD fund, so that is really good news for open space. So, we also have an item on city council tomorrow night that was in front of the open space commission some time ago on the road access consideration, the right of way coming in from the Hidden Hollow Road across section 6 of Observatory Mesa to some private property. So this is going to be in front of city council tomorrow evening with a presentation for myself and Kevin Fiddle. And it is a discussion item. And then they're going to be on break for a little while. And then that is going to go back in front of city council for a decision, for a general decision, on whether or not they want to entertain the amendment to that easement. And if they approve that they do want to entertain an amendment, then it would go to the state level. And then if they approved it, it would go back to the city for their formal development process. So if you're interested, that's tomorrow night.
Do you want anything to say?
You want to? Up to you guys.
I'm in a review session all tomorrow, but I sure wish I could be there for that. But I can't. I hope somebody can.
We'll do our best to present the whole.
Yeah.
Shebang.
But the thing that was missing in the write-up for me was, it was implied, but it's just a statement, we're generally concerned about the effect that would have, realizing it's legally possible. All of it's legally possible, but expressed that we, at least I feel that way.
I think that was the direction from the commission when we discussed that topic, and that will be mentioned in the presentation.
There is a pros May 2024 newsletter.
I believe you should receive that.
Yep.
Good. Yeah. So if you have questions about that, let me know.
Good job.
Anybody want to share anything with staff?
I do, very quickly, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I asked.
It has to do with e-bikes. Here's what is going through my head, so I'm not making any suggestions or directions. And I won't even go to the reasons behind it, but this summer has really enlightened me a lot. I think foot trails should have speed limits on them. Not maybe all of them, but certain foot trails. Certainly not on the ones that are on the road, the bike paths and stuff that are on the road. But I mean, the neighborhood trails and things, I think there ought to be speed limits and they ought to be posted. And I think e-bikes should be registered And the reason I say that is it's a way to educate the pros and cons of e-bikes and how to use them. I've seen what I estimated is 8-year-olds. I live, I think, in an area that some of the folks don't know what to do with their money on e-bikes that are just this big, that were really very careful. And I've seen bearded old guys that were, I think, trying to impress their young friend, going as fast as 20 times as fast as I could run. And that's literally. So, I mean, as fast as I could walk. I can move fast. I think it's, as we've heard here, e-bikes are coming. But remember, when the horseless carriage came, there were no rules. And now we've got all kinds of rules. And I think we're kind of in the same state right now, and we're Flagstaff oriented. I think we're Flagstaff oriented. We can learn from other folks, but we do what we think is best for Flagstaff. So I want to bring that up. That's coming in my head, thinking about it, and I just throw it out.
I think that's why when I said e-bike specification, how far, how many, what actually the measurement cc or whatever. That thing.
You're right, you can't, just like stop signs, you can't keep people from running through stop signs. But not having stop signs is worse.
May I respond to that? As the person that oversees, or one of the overseers of the Parks Department, since it's the Parks Department that maintains all of our urban trail system in the community, all 60 miles of it, there are MUTCD signage on the trails. They're primarily stop signs and yield signs. You are correct, Commissioner White, there are not speed limit signs. But it is something I think we're going to need to consider as an organization holistically as we continue to see those multimodal trails used differently than originally intended when the idea of them came forward in the early 1980s. I think it's time to start to have that discussion, because I do see stop signs not utilized by users as well as yield signs. And that becomes very dangerous very quickly when we're crossing streets through the urban trail system. So it can be something I can talk about with traffic engineering, since they would be the keepers and owners of those rules and policies and street signage. No, great suggestion. I appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
And how does that get originated? Is that then it starts with your department and then goes up to like a city ordinance or council? How would that-
It's so that the MUTCD signage it's roadway signage, which a mile per hour signage would fall under that category. There currently is a stop sign and yield sign amongst the trail system itself. We do have the high commuter segments, like the Route 66 and the 180 segment are considered more of those higher commuter trail segments. And then there's those that wind through neighborhoods that are typically an aggregate surface, where you would expect the speed of an individual to be less, but not always the case. So it's something I can talk about with multimodal planning and traffic engineering at the city, and then figure out, there would need to be a funding source behind installing signage like that. It's not a significant cost to do so, but there is a cost associated. But knowing that the multimodal trail, of which the Foots is, can accommodate that. It is, since it is considered multimodal, that's what I want to ensure with traffic engineering, that could we put up mile per hour signage. I'm not sure how the engineering would view that at this time.
I don't know how fast people know they're going on an electric bike. Yes.
They do.
The slow ones.
Some of them do. I believe it's only supposed, and it's measured, it's a type 1, type 2, type 3. I believe is the e-bike classification, unlike a motor scooter, which is a CC because with an engine. And I believe it's only supposed to be type 1 and type 2, I thought, on majority of, if not all of our trails allow e-bikes, but that is what our city council had elected to do.
The multiplication, average walker maybe 2.5 miles an hour. And if a bike goes by you at 10, it's almost 5 times faster than you're walking. So those are the numbers. And then if it's 20, it's 10 times faster. And as you point out, I think a lot of folks, when you're on an e-bike, you don't know how fast you're driving or riding. If you're pedaling, you do.
Okay, I'm gonna go to, so that was information from the commissioners to the staff, potential future agenda items.
I think we'll just probably see if staff are available to move the other 2 agenda items that were on today's agenda to the next one.
Okay, thank you.
Unless the commission has any other requests.
No, and a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
all in favor?
Aye. I think they were so good.
No, I know, but.
No, I didn't.
Sure, please give me your hand.
Yeah. I like that.
No, they're good.
Right. So. Actually, that's.
Well,
At that time, I think my first meeting